Amazing, hey, how many industries are just gone?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
gone.
yeah. That one
Huh.
was a little overconsumptive in the sense that it was like a very elite niche product.
Mhm,
So I wasn't sorry to see that go. Plus,
mhm.
like I was, painting Christmas trees in the middle of July, and it was driving me absolutely bonkers. And it took so much of my energy to do that that I couldn't bring anything back to my own
Mhm.
studio. I was just kind of spent on the corporate work, and when they
Yeah.
started to fail, they started letting people go, and I got a pretty generous severance package. And the first thing
Mhm.
that I did was I went back into my studio and just locked myself in there for like 3 months and just painted still life after still life after still life of just things up in front of me. And I would do them in like a 6 hour to 4 to 6 hour session, a little 6x6. In fact, I've got one right hanging right here on the wall. Let me grab it.
Oh.
There's only like 2 or 3 of these left in my studio. There's a little perfume
Oh,
bottle.
cool.
It's a little
I
shiny.
like it. Aw,
But like this was
I
all
like
these
it.
were all painted from life. I just would put a colored piece of felt behind them, light them
Yeah.
up with a 3/4 lighting, and just paint them. And I did that for 3 months. Hold on, let me hang
Wow.
this here so it doesn't fall down. And um, I was just about done, and somebody came over for a little studio visit. It was actually one of the people who did framing for me, and he opened a new shop that he wanted to turn into a gallery. And he was like, "Whoa, look at all this! You want to have a show?" And I was like, "Cool." And we did that, and I sold most of them. And so
Wow.
I was just kind of like, "This is what I should be doing."
Yeah, no kidding.
This corporate stuff, but there's always that pressure in life. As a husband and father of three, like
Mhm.
you feel this need to fulfill those obligations of real
Absolutely.
life, as a
Yeah.
parent yourself. And so you get drawn towards these things saying like, oh, this feels like the right thing to do, the responsible thing to do. And then
Yeah.
you do it and you're just like, is it responsible to kill myself and to like bury my dreams and compromise my art and myself for the sake of this responsibility thing? And the
Mhm.
answer is always no. Um, it took me years to find that out. I mean, I'm 50
Mhm.
years old, which sounds old, but
Not really. Like, now that I'm 41, it's like, "Nah, it's not."
it goes really fast. But uh,
Mhm.
you know, I'm I'm no, as a professor, like I'm also no stranger to being on the other side and being the student. And like
Mhm.
life is the school, and like I'm being schooled all the time, and I'm willing to learn, and
Yeah.
it's not these like negative things either. I mean,
No.
through that, I learn about my own work, what
Mhm.
it is that I do best. Like just that corporate gig itself, just going back to that for a second. Like
Yeah.
I learned what I didn't want to do.
Mm. Mhm.
It's kind of a weird lesson. And it was a little bit of like a, quasi biblical level temptation thing where it was just like, here's
Mhm.
all the money and like the
Mhm.
safety and the security, which also wasn't true anyway, because the company went under.
It
So
went under, right? Yeah. It's
so
so interesting,
none
hey?
of that
Like,
stuff is really real. And if you stick with what you really want to do, and you have to be super real about it though. And I don't
mhm.
just the pragmatic thing where it's just like, oh, you need to make money. It's like, no, the actual sticking to it is like you have to believe that this is the thing that you want to do. And it takes more
Mhm.
effort and self-motivation than you could possibly think in order
Mhm.
to make that really, really happen.
Well,
I
that belief, that
and
bel
belief
yeah, that
and
belief is so hard to keep having in yourself.
for sure. And there are so
Mhm.
many things that happen in life that knock you off that belief. That
Mhm.
you just go, well, yeah, I'm just being delusional here. I shouldn't be
Mhm.
thinking that way.
Yeah.
But you can't do that, and you shouldn't do that. And some people might look at you and call you selfish and just self-absorbed. It's just like you want to do this thing that like makes no money and serves no practical purpose in the world. Um, and you go, oh yeah, you're probably right. Damn it. But it's not true. You can't listen to those
Mhm.
voices, even if it's in your own head. You can't listen
Yeah.
to that one either. You have to like be positive and maintain it. Honestly, I bring up my age and everything now because like
Hmm.
only now am I really, really realizing this for truth, like the truth of that.
Right.
And it's taken a long time. It's taking a lot of
Yeah.
different types of gigs in order for me to sort of come to that. But that's I think that's the thing I could put out there for anybody listening is that the path is not linear. So you can listen to
Yeah.
me and just be like, "Oh, that's what I should be doing." It's like, don't do what I did. I don't even know what I did. It's like
Well,
so
it's like that doesn't even exist anymore, like the
well, some of
corporate
that
gig you're
stuff.
talking
No,
about, right? Yeah.
no, you
So
can't.
it's
You can't even do it.
no, you can't if you wanted to,
Right.
right?
Um,
Yeah.
but the point is just the non-linear path of an
Hmm.
artist is the path.
Right.
You can't just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna focus on this one thing and I'm just gonna get there because I can see it straight ahead." It's like, no, you're gonna go all the way around and go off the trail and like, do the two paths diverged in a wood. This is like 10 diverged to like on a clover leaf on a super highway. Like you're just gonna go and then but then you come
Mhm.
back. The whole point is just keep coming back. Find your way
Yeah.
back and then go forward a little more. You might get thrown off, you come back, and like eventually you end up old like me, but you you come to you come to kind of a bigger truth in what it is that you do.
Yeah. And so just for everybody who's listening, I know you've already told us your age, but like how long have you been a painter? Like, I mean, I'm sure you painted before you got into academia,
Mhm.
right? And then so to be a professor, you probably have your master's, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's got to be a chunk of learning,
Mm,
right?
a bit, yeah.
Hmm. But like
And
as a professional artist, like how long have you been that person?
I mean, so professional meaning that like I got paid for a gig.
Yeah.
Most of us who are artists, like, oh, I've been drawing and painting since I was like, before I could, smaller than the teddy bear that I owned or whatever. But
Yeah, probably your whole life.
yeah, it's a whole
Mhm.
life kind of thing. But I think, coming out of undergrad or just coming out of undergrad, because I went to school at the School of Visual Arts in New York City, um, and and I double majored in illustration and painting. The illustration side being again that thing where I mean
Mhm.
I
Gotta
came
make
from
the money.
a really conservative family that did not want me to be doing any of this. So I had to kind of pave my own way, but I had to make some concessions. So I didn't go
Mhm.
full on into the painting thing. I took the illustration route to try and get, professional gigs that would pay me immediately for the work. So
Mhm.
that's what I did coming out of school, like right out of the gate. So that was
Wow.
like 1992.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so it's been like 32 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean that is such an accomplishment. Having just my short time being involved in art as a commercial enterprise. That's
Mhm.
a hard thing to sustain,
Mm,
right?
it is, and that's going back to like the going off the beaten path and doing all these other things,
Mhm.
but always having that core of like art is the thing that I do, no
Mhm.
matter what it is.
Mhm.
And coming to the idea of like being a painter and not an illustrator, which by the way, whenever my students ask me the difference between like what is fine art and what is illustrating,
Mhm.
fine art is also it's kind of a lame term when you really think about it, but like
Mhm.
that's just the term we have.
Mhm.
Easy reference point. So the difference that I tell them, because
Mhm.
people tell you all kinds of things. People in the fine art world will say one thing, people in the illustration world will say a different thing.
Mhm.
And both sort of look at each other with a little bit of disdain, sort of across.
Yeah, they're kind of, I don't like
Yeah,
it.
like, what you do is lame, and it's like what you do is selling out, and it's just like
Yeah,
shut up. You're both
yeah.
making pictures, and you're supposed to be really happy with whatever that is.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but the true definition is like illustration is making art for other with other people's ideas in mind.
Mhm.
Making fine art is making art with your ideas in mind. That's it.
I like that definition because I've heard a lot of different definitions, and so I think one of the most recent ones I heard was like, well, illustration is narrative and fine art is symbolic or emotive, and I was like, well, kind of, but not really. Like, not really. I
No.
mean, I've seen tons of fine art that's narrative.
Yeah. There's, I mean, in antiquity, like during that period of like the neoclassical, uh,
Yes,
like all of that stuff was narrative and allegorical. Um,
exactly.
you don't see that as much now, especially in like the high end fine art world, because that's, that's almost kitsch now, those types of
Yeah.
concepts. But, and so people, if you put that into your work as a fine artist, like they'll say the critique would be, "Oh, that's too illustrative," like
Mm.
that's an insult, you know.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I'm
You
always
don't like
like,
that.
why are we using that word in a pejorative sense? Because I
Yeah.
wear both hats, and I don't, and I really feel the distinction isn't really inside the work so much as it is the external forces that
Hmm.
guide the work.
Yeah.
And one, I
Exactly.
suppose, is external and internal if it's you
Mm.
guiding the path of the work. And then one is
Hmm.
purely external because it's a creative director and it's a product or an advertisement or, you know,
Hmm.
creating a text like a children's book or something like that, something external. But that's
Hmm.
the only distinction. I mean,
Hmm.
if you were to really be, empirical about it, Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, the ceiling and the altarpiece,
Yeah.
those are
That's
illustrations.
straight vision.
Those are
Hmm.
illustrations for like Bible stories.
Hmm.
The Pope commissioned them, and they're
Hmm.
just he's like, the Bible stories, dude, right? You're a good Catholic. So
Oh.
put them up there so people can see them because most people don't know the High Latin Mass. They can't understand it, or they can't read the text because they're all stupid. So we need more
Hmm.
people. So let's get the stupid people, and they can look at the pictures like it's a big comic book.
Yeah.
And it was like a really successful marriage between painters and the Catholic Church, and that spawned
Hmm.
like a whole renaissance and everything that we have now. Um,
Hmm.
so, and also I know a lot of this through my art history, but also the fact that I was raised Catholic, so all that imagery was around me all the time.
Yeah.
And it's really funny too because I am going off on a tangent here, but there
That's
was a
okay.
kind of a dovetailing between the Catholica visual culture and comic books because I was also surrounded by
Mm.
comic books all the time because my grandfather
Mm.
was the editor for Action Comics #1, which was the first edition of
What?
Superman. Yeah,
No.
yeah,
That's so
and
cool.
no, so it was. I was surrounded by comic stuff all the time. By the way, like this is I'm not any kind of Nepo baby because he left what
Mm.
eventually became DC. Um, and started his own magazine enterprises comic publishing company, and it just failed
Just
miserably.
film. Oh.
And because he thought he could compete against Marvel and DC, it's like
Oh.
so not a good businessman. Probably inherited that. Uh, that's
No.
the only thing I inherited. I did not see a copy of Action Comics #1 in my lifetime because if I had, we might not be talking right now because
Right?
that's worth $15 million.
Yeah.
So,
That's
but
a
it was
cool thing though.
it's kind of an
You're
interesting
involved in.
history. I mean, not in terms of the fame aspect of it, just in terms of my exposure to these different things.
Absolutely.
You,
Yeah.
if you look at like the icons of like, the Christ risen with like the hearts and like the blue and red rays coming out of it,
Hmm.
and the Immaculate Heart of Mary image with the same kind of heart thing. This is like a logo on a superhero costume right here. So
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
swap them out, you know.
Hmm.
It was
Yeah.
just
I never
really
thought of
weird
it that way. Yeah.
looking back on it and saying like that's the kind of thing I was exposed to and how confused I
Hmm.
was as a young person by it, but also just kind of wrapped up in the sort of mythological narrativity of things
Hmm.
like Bible stories. And sorry if I'm offending people by calling it mythological, but I've read it a million times, so I know. And
Hmm.
and also the mythology and storytelling inside comics, like
Hmm.
it's just
Very similar.
those
Hmm.
narratives like also kind of cross over in a lot of ways, like super powered
Mm.
beings that can control like an environment full of lesser beings,
Mm.
either save them or crush them depending on whether they're the villain or the good guy. And like,
Yeah.
and I think narratively to a degree, but certainly visually, that like really got into my head.
Very similar. And it's interesting that you bring that up because they have a very similar quality, even in composition, where
Mhm.
that superhero figure kind of takes that center stage, and then there's kind of other beings or other elements around it, but very similar
Yeah, yeah,
compositions too. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting juxtaposition.
it definitely is, and it's not something that I was like fully cognizant of as a kid.
No,
I
well,
think,
I don't think we're fully cognizant as children at all.
but I do think that it was those both of those things were absorbed simultaneously, and
Mhm.
whatever kind of personal makeup I had kind of got all enmeshed into other ideas inside my head as to like,
Mm,
when I draw or make things, like how do those things look going out into the world? And it took, decades and decades before I realized like where all that stuff was coming from and why
mhm,
there were other types of art that I was attracted to.
mm,
And that it could kind of be traced back to those early years and those visuals that I was exposed to as well.
mhm.
And I was also fortunate because I had a grandmother on my mother's side, um, that and they lived in New England, and that was my attraction to New England. That's why I'm here in Maine, moving from New
Yeah.
York.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
she was lived in Old Lyme, Connecticut, which is the birthplace of the American Impressionists. Um,
Oh.
there's a
Hmm.
museum there called the Florence Griswold Museum, and she, as like a wealthy widower, actually housed Child Hassam and the rest of the American Impressionists when they came over from France after having visited there, looking at all the impressionists and being like, "Oh, this is the way to do things," and come back to the
Oh,
states, and nobody knew what the hell they were doing. They were looking at their paintings like, "This is crap. What are you guys doing?"
yeah.
And they're like, "Wow, we're so poor now." And so she housed most of them,
Wow.
and they all hung around her estate. And if you go to her house, you'll see like the dining room, like the wall panels are all painted with pastoral scenes, local pastoral scenes by the American Impressionists that stayed
What? That's
there.
so cool.
And so she introduced me to all that stuff. So and also Andrew Wyeth and the Wyeth family, because that's a very New England thing. Uh,
Yes.
it's
I
got
love his
Pennsylvania,
work.
but it's also Maine. But she also introduced me to that. So I also had that coming in from another side. Um,
Wow.
because that was actually, I guess, both sets of grandparents had their fingers in like weird
Yeah.
ritual culture pies that, like, for me as a little kid, since I guess I was like really impressionable and precocious, like I just absorbed them in all these like weird ways. I was attracted to all of them and didn't really
Mhm,
know if and how they related at all. But somehow, as my work got better and my skill set got better and I got formal training, that those predilections of like those likes kind of
mhm,
came out in the work and started to form. Um,
mhm.
yeah.
I think that's really interesting. You have two grandparents that were, I mean, those are very extremes of the art world, but still like housing vagrant plein air artists,
Yeah, I know.
impressionists. That's like she must have been a pretty cool grandma.
Yeah. Oh, that wasn't. Well, I mean, it wasn't my grandma. It was like
Oh, okay.
this wealthy woman, like because that was like 18
Yeah, I was thinking
or
that's a while ago.
early 1900s. I think that happened.
Okay.
And the reason my grandmother was all into it is because she was part of like a local like ladies society that
Okay.
like were caretakers of that estate because it wasn't a formal museum at the time when I was a little kid. They
Okay.
were kind of keeping it alive as this like society of the Florence Griswold, whatever. My grandmother was a
Okay.
huge gardener, so she took care of a lot of the gardens. So she
Hmm.
was always taking me over there. So I was
Nice.
like hanging out like in this mansion looking at these paintings, probably kind of bored, but at the same time still like this is
Hmm.
pretty interesting because I don't know any other kid that does this. So
Right? Yeah. That
but
must have been, I don't know, it sounds like the perfect storm for a little artist to kind of incubate in.
I think so. I think that
Mhm,
it was a motivating factor from a bunch of different angles because it sort of taught me, again, not formally but informally, that you could be, if you wanted to be an artist, you could be any kind. you know
mhm,
any of these things were relevant, whether you wanted your art to reflect something very formal like a religious thing, if you wanted
mhm,
to be very commercial and be comic oriented, or
mhm,
if you wanted it to be uh you know culturally relevant in a moment like the American Impressionists,
mhm.
you could try and be that too. So
Yeah.
yeah.